Well, hello everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And I am Louise Eddington, astrologer, best-selling author, and I help you to create a wonderful free life.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Duchenne, and I'm an Akashic healer, spiritual teacher, and guide, creator of the Illuminating Journey Cards, and I help my clients to experience more of what they truly want.
And let's do the cards, and then we have an announcement after the cards. But Jen, what card did you pull for the Scorpio full moon?
So the card that showed up is the 14 Soul Portal, and I find this is interesting. Of course, it's a 5, so harks back to the 5 of the year. There's a ram in here, which is kind of connecting to that energy. What is interesting is the figure here. For those who can't see, there's a figure there.
Oh, yeah.
With this ball, which might be the earth, could be the energy of the cosmos. In this feels like a moment of empowerment or awareness. There's a little, what do you call that? A little canary, there's bells. And in the background is this, what do you call it? Like a tightrope with a little bicycle. So it's that moment of needing to take the action, do the work, like kind of settle into this is who I am, kind of accepting your empowerment. And the figure is wearing what looks like antlers, like as if she's crowned with antlers. This recognition I'm a galactic being here on Earth, and I'm choosing to do things, the difficult things, to kind of walk the tightrope or bicycle on that cord with seemingly no protection.
And I love the way that they're all kind of facing one direction, moving forward, and it's very earthly colors. And even though, because this is a Scorpio full moon, we're talking about today, but of course that means at the opposite point is Taurus, which is very earthly and is very much about making things real, manifestation and growth. And I am chuckling when I look at this card because hold yours up still. If you would.
Oh my goodness.
I
That's
know. Can you believe this?
amazing.
No, I mean, she's even wearing the horns, but we've got the ram's horns kind of thing, like you've got a ram there. So,
That's her shield, which is that same kind of circle.
yeah.
Wow.
And the
That's
Princess of Discs in the tarot is about the mastery and creativity of and birth of new forms. So, this is about focusing, getting down to work as well. She's pregnant in this, if you can see in the card. So it's about birthing the new forms in that way also. And it's about, she's been kind of behind there's some fire. She's kind of been through the volcano, through the briar patch which she's leaving behind, and is gestating and incubating something new. Now she has the snake on her shoulder as well, which transforms into an ermine cloak, and ermine cloak represented kind of abundance in old things. Hopefully, we don't wear actual ermine coats these days, but still. But this is just, I can't believe how close these cards are. Just look at them.
that is pretty crazy. The coloring, the ball, the figure.
The horns, the theme, and yours is even leaving behind. This tree looks like it's kind of in its fall. You know.
Right, or cherry blossom tree. It's just
Oh,
kind
is
of
it
like
cherry blossom?
branches.
Yeah.
Well, some people think of it as a cherry blossom tree. So it's like this bare kind of just
Yeah.
punch thing. That's very much a coming to realization of what is required.
Mm.
Just do the work. This is what a card always makes me think about. It's doing the work. What's necessary to kind of go to that next level to,
Definitely.
right,
And
to,
I see you've got kind of roots coming down from, it looks like from the ball and the hand, and
yeah,
her gown feels like it's going down into the ground like this figure
right,
does as well. So it's a very rooted card, which to do the work you have to really get grounded and rooted. So
right.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that similarity. It's very strange and wonderful.
It's wonderful. Weirdly magical.
Indeed.
But speaking of weirdly magical, Jen and I have an announcement. Jen and I both have an awful lot going on in our lives. Jen is actually moving to Europe, and we both have like so many major astrological transits happening in our chart that I won't go into, but it's and we're just, well, we'll remain close friends, but this is actually going to be the last weirdly magical podcast, at least for now. Who knows? But it just feels like a natural ending. The full moon for me is exactly hitting my chart in the places of fulfillment, and Jen, it's also affecting Jen in some places. So we didn't give any warning, but we both sat with this, and it feels like a full moon is a completion. Jen moving to Europe, she's going to be very involved with that. We've both moved countries before. We know it, what a big shift it is. And I myself have some shifts happening in my own life that mean I want to focus elsewhere. So, Jen can be found on jendeshen.com, and she'll still be working, clearly. I can be found on louiseeddington.com, and I'll still be, Jen will tell you in a minute what she's got going on, but I have my Venus enchantment community, which is a major focus for me now. I have another book I want to write to go with my complete guide to astrology, which is number one of all astrology books on astrology.com. But I have another book I want to write that's really from my heart. I might still be podcasting. Jen might podcast again when she settles where she's going. But it's just time for the weirdly magical podcast to come to a halt. So, Jen, do you want to tell everybody how they can continue to find you while through your move? So,
Absolutely. Besides my website that Lou mentioned, and I was just thinking as Lou was talking that that ball in the cards report and this moon is about it's about rebirthing or coming new, birthing into something new, so completion and that. And I believe we're all moving into new awareness, new birthing. So some of the work that I am getting more involved in is working with this idea of having more, being more. So a lot of my work is going into that direction, more teaching around healing to wholeness, as well as new classes coming, some fantastic, well, I think they're fantastic. Who knows if you'll agree, but classes around using the illuminating journey cards, using vision to activate your vision, what you want to see and know through the cards, and other work around that. And of course, once I move, I hope to incorporate more of the energy of the divine, the goddess, the aspects which bring the balance between the two opposites, the intuition and the activation into my work. So yes, find me at my website or on Instagram or on Facebook.
and incidentally, my card is kind of about my work, because my focus is on this Venus enchantment community and working with the Venus cycle, and and Venus is the ruler of Taurus and is very much about this card, and her cycle is a 9.5 month birthing, and we've just had the Venus star point. So there's just too many signs, and so all the other episodes will still be up. You can always revisit any past episodes. They'll still be on iTunes, the Weirdly Magical Podcast YouTube channel will still be up. You know, anybody can always go back and listen to old episodes, or but continue to, you know, follow our personal YouTube channels and Facebook pages, etc. Please, and see what we're up to. And I'm sure if I podcast, Jen will be a guest at times, and if Jen podcasts, I'm sure I'll be a guest at times on hers, so, because we've been friends for a long time, so that's not going to change. So, moving on. And I did want to point out as well, Jen has got this necklace that somebody made for her and gifted to her, and she was wearing that, and I was like, I have a necklace that's almost the same, only a different color, so we're wearing our necklace. Okay, so the Scorpio full moon is on April the 27th, 2021 at 4:32 a.m. London time. Okay, and it's at 7 degrees and 6 minutes of Scorpio, with the sun opposing at 7 degrees and 6 minutes of Taurus. And the sun is in a big Taurus cluster as we record this. We're recording this on the new moon in Aries, where we have a massive plethora of planets in Aries. Well, by April the 27th, the Sun, Venus, and Mercury will have all moved into Taurus. And they're kind of in a cluster that is about 9 degrees. And I'm going to call that a conjunction. So the Sun in Taurus is conjunct Uranus at 10 degrees, Venus at 15 degrees, Black Moon Lilith at 15 degrees, and Mercury at 16 degrees. So we'll talk all about that. The full moon is also square to Hygeia in Leo and Chariklo in Aquarius, forming a fixed grand cross. So we'll talk about that too. And the closest other aspect to the moon and the sun is to Vesta in Virgo, that is sextile to the moon and trine to the sun. And Vesta will have just stationed direct a few days before. But one last thing, Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, or the modern ruler of Scorpio, and Pluto is stationing retrograde a few hours after this full moon. So the ruler of the full moon is at his station point, and Pluto stations can be quite transformative. So it kind of gives you an indication of this full moon already before we even look at anything else, because Scorpio, the sign is a sign of transformation and purging and release and going down into the depths as well. So we'll talk more about that. So Jen, the numbers.
Yes, I was just thinking about how truth is such a big part of this as we go deeper, or is revealed to us. The endings allows us to kind of find the energy of truth that helps us to free ourselves. So what's exciting about this full moon, 7 degrees, which is the number of illuminating our own wisdom. The 7 allows us to draw in the energy of the awareness. It lights up our intuition, allows us to look at the past and change the present so we can experience something different in the future, which is very much about this time. It's the completion of many, many cycles, many ancient cycles, many things we've been living under. So this idea of this illumination of our heart, of our awareness into who do I need to be in this moment? What do I need to see? Kind of pulling back the layers to see the truth. And that's very much that Scorpio energy. The reason why we've done things, behaved in a certain way, is because we needed something we weren't getting. Maybe we were fooling ourselves, and now we need to kind of pay the piper, do the work, which ties into the cards. I find it interesting that it's 7 and 6 minutes, 7 degrees 6 minutes, because we have the 6 and 7. This is happening on the 26th of April, and that's an 8.
Oh,
So,
it's
huh?
the yeah, it's the 26th in the US. The
Oh,
20.
it is the 27th or 20, is it the 27th? That's why I was confused. Okay, because I
Sorry,
saw
it's the 27th in the UK. I told you wrong that it's on the same day.
Yeah, well, here we are revealing the truth. So, um, so it is the 26th in the UK, so that's an 8. So I'll talk a little bit about the other date, the 9th, the 27th in the US. So the 8th, so that
The
gives
other
us,
way around. It's
yeah.
26th in the UK, in the US, sorry, and 20.
Oh, right. Now I'm looking at your thing, right? Okay. I'm looking at the one you sent me. Right, right. Yes. 26 here, 27 in the UK, right? Okay, so in the US, it's an 8. 26 is an 8. So this is about taking leadership, finding balance in what we're doing. And April is a 9 universal month. So we have that 7, 8, 9 to think about if you are in the US. In the universal time, it's the 27th. So that gives us a triple 9 day because it's the 9 universal month. 27 is a 9 day. And so you add those together and that gives you another 9. It reduces to a 9. So that's pretty amazing, explosive, triple 9 energy, endings, expanding and just opening your heart in an ending to open your heart and to allow this understanding what's available to you, forgiveness, love, awareness. And if we think about that 7, which some people may think of as an 8, but there's that 7, expanding our intuition. So expanding our heart and our rooting, knowing that it is up to us to make a different choice. So it's very, very powerful. Either way, wherever you are, this is about really seeing the what you need to do, because now you've been given this opportunity to wash and cleanse what has been maybe something very painful that you have been living by.
Yeah, and interesting you say wash and cleanse because I always think of Scorpio full moon as the flooding full moon, because it's often a big flood of purging emotions, really cleansing out. And I literally had a basement flood a few years ago on a Scorpio full moon, so it was a freak flood that you could not predict. And this full moon is going to be digging very deep. The proximity of Uranus to the sun in Taurus is going to bring some sudden illuminations and ignoring literal floods. I think this is going to, because Scorpio full moons are really deep emotionally, they really kind of plumb the depths of our own shadow work and our own deepest psyche, and also are reflective of our most deeply bonded relationships and any sense of merging with other people. The proximity of Uranus to this full moon is going to bring some sudden awakenings, I think, some very deep awakenings, especially with Pluto, the ruler, stationing retrograde on the same day. I would prepare to perhaps do some ceremony, and I think the awakenings are going to be good. They're going to be sudden awarenesses of things that need to be purged, released, let go of on this full moon. But I think it might have a little bit of a shocking quality with this full moon, the whole makeup of this chart. The proximity of Venus and Black Moon Lilith exactly together, and Mercury only a degree apart from those two, also conjunct the full moon. Oh, and with Venus now just over 8 degrees away from the full moon, I think she might be visible as the evening star in some places. If if you've got a really mountaintop view of the setting sun, you might just glimpse Venus as the evening star before she dips below the horizon too. It kind of feels like this rebirthing that we got in those cards, like this time to really buckle down, rebirth this wild part of yourself as well, and the messages that are going to come through with both Mercury, the messenger, and our kind of rational mind, and Uranus, kind of the lightning bolt messenger of the gods, conjunct there. I think we're just going to get some amazing insights that come from somewhere very deep within, that are going to transform you and move you forward and release some very old patterns on this full moon. So.
Right. I'm nodding along. For those of you who can't see, I'm just like nodding whatever Lou's saying, because one of the things I am hearing from the Akashic Masters is this is like this moment is the moment of the ark, the Noah ark. I think I've talked about it a little bit before, but now this feels like that moment of embarkation or debarkation, whatever it's called, when you're going, no, embarkation, right? You're leaving.
Mm.
That 999, it's the rising of the waters. If you think about the story of Noah's Ark, is the rising of the water and the need to leave behind what has maybe overwhelmed you, that you've secreted away. The Uranus energy at the 10, it feels like, and this is what I'm hearing, is the energy of being like a lightning bolt to your heart.
Mm.
So this kind of jump starting of your energy. And I was just thinking about this journey I took a few days ago. Took a journey, and what happened was part of the journey going into the depths of what seemed like water to retrieve a very old part of myself. And so I was just thinking how appropriate that is in terms of the Scorpio, is going to that part of ourselves, as you were mentioning, Lou, that idea of going to the depths, the part of ourselves that probably has been hidden under many layers, that has been secreted away for safekeeping, and maybe we've even forgotten about it.
Mm.
And this kind of electrifying to our heart system, being flooded by water or liquid, is that washing away of whatever has been hidden. So now we begin to see, and it is revealed to us, that part of ourselves, and it's kind of forcing its way into our lives. So all this time we've been able to suppress that stuff and hide behind our all our cover-ups, but now this stuff is just going to come to the surface. We won't be able to keep it below the surface. We will be electrified by our truth, by our love of wanting to be fully revealed, not to be imprisoned anymore, is how it feels.
Mm.
And so it's so interesting there we have Mercury, right, at that 16, which is also a 7. And that we have Venus with Black Moon Lilith, that kind of at the 15, which is the 6, the energy of love, awakening us to our true service as humans. Is what we're doing here is to be, that's our service, is to do what we do with love, and not be doing it because we're afraid or we think that we're not supposed to or we're not good enough. So I find it very interesting that all of this energy is pushing us towards that redemption, that ending that allows us to be reborn in a new way.
And I do really see it as a kind of rebirth, redemption in so many ways. If we think about the cyclical nature of the planets, the Sun and Venus have been traveling together. We had the connection between Venus and the Sun, the Venus star point, starting a new 9.5 month cycle back on March the 26th. So it will be a month after. With Venus starting to emerge as the evening star, starting her 9.5 months, which is the length of a pregnancy, literally, journey through to the end of the year, where she goes on her retrograde journey. And then, Venus and Black Moon Lilith together on this. Black Moon Lilith is really the shamed, rejected um, part of the female. I see these female planets as all faces of the goddess. You know, they're not separate to me; they're the separate faces. I see Venus kind of as the Eve figure, and Lilith was the first wife of Adam in the myth. And so here they are coming together as Venus emerges on that new journey, with Mercury, the messenger, who went between the world of humans and the world of the gods. We also have Venus here in the sign she rules, Taurus, one of the signs she rules, kind of taking her rightful place, if you like. And it's emerging from that journey that started back in Aries and the Venus star point at 5 degrees 50 minutes. It's all quite fascinating to me how they're all emerging together, the way it's all unfolding. Mars has travelled ahead. He's the traditional ruler of the Scorpio moon. Mars on this full moon will by then have moved to 2 degrees of Cancer, but Mars is still out of bounds on this full moon. He's out of bounds, acting out of character until May the 24th. And so he's forging new ground after crossing that north node on the day of the Venus star point. And he's doing things differently. So that's the divine masculine as well, the protector. I've started to think of Mars not as the god of war. I've started to think of him as our protector, really, our Mars that we have in each of us. If you look at the way our planets go, we have the sun at the core, then we have Mercury, then we have Venus, then the Earth and our moon, and then we have Mars, kind of protecting our personal planets and personal self from the transpersonal, from the rest of the universe, kind of our little guard with his spear there going up. Don't worry, I'll keep you safe. And I'm your life force, but I will, make sure all these more feeling, touching core parts of yourself are safe. And Mars moved into Cancer. I kind of feel like he's going, okay, the self-love that we've been invited to do over the last few weeks is really being protected now, and saying it's got to be your focus. So, if that made sense, that felt like a whole lot of words blurting.
Yes, it made sense. I was just thinking when you were talking about it that, Lilith and Eve have, Lilith is the shame, that the light that has been dimmed, like the shame, the female or the prostitute, that kind of idea that they were, women were prostitutes, instead of recognizing the sacred sexuality and the acts that they did, not in terms of prostitution, but in reverence and in love and in expansion of being. So they're coming to a light that has been dimmed, coming up into its correct position. Venus too, taking the Eve, all these different things that have been also overshadowed or controlled, often through, that which was taken by the masculine, which was the sun and Mars and those things. So yes, I find it interesting that Mars is in Cancer, the sign of the home, of the heart, of protection, and at 2 degrees. So very interesting, 2 degrees with the 13 minutes. That's interesting too. But the 2 and the 4, and that adds up to 6, which is the love number. But the 2 is like bringing balance or awareness to everything in its rightful place, that having protection or having the ability to activate your life force does not take away your ability to be an emotional being, to have expression, self-expression. So it's not just force, but expression, and that softening of Mars in Gemini, I'm not in Gemini, in Cancer, with the 2 is that kind of softening, that opening, that awareness, that boundaries. This is about boundaries. It's not about walls. there's a difference. Like when we know our boundaries, we are safe, and we don't need walls. So I think that ties in very much to what you're talking about, Lou, that idea that we move forward by shifting the energies that have been so long under a certain light, under a certain belief system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I forgot to mention that Venus and Lilith coming together in the, if we look at the myth of the fall, so to speak, as it was called, um, often Lilith was thought of as the snake in the tree of knowledge that tempted Adam and Eve to bite from the fruit. And interesting that they're so together on this at that 6 degree mark. And then I had another thought and I can't remember what it is. Anyway, basically, I kind of see this lineup of planets as kind of awakenings to healing. Jen mentioned, the divine sacred sexuality of women in the past, but there's also been the shame of, like, Magdalene was portrayed as a prostitute all the time, and now there's actual evidence that she was never a prostitute. I've been reading and listening to a lot of things in the Gospel of Magdalene, and she was the wife of Christ. Even the Catholic Church has admitted that Gospel of Magdalene is true, and it's there's plenty of evidence within it that she was actually the wife of Christ. Whether you believe they were actually divine beings or prophets or whatever, but she was the apostle to the apostles. So there's that part of the shame too, where yes, there were sacred prostitutes, sexuality and things like that, but there are also women who've been shamed as prostitutes when they were anything but. They were actually powerful women in the time of when the current age of Pisces began, really. So
No, but I think that one of the things there's a confusion around is the word prostitute, is that those goddesses or sacred priestesses or who worked with sacred sexuality were not prostitutes. It's the idea of being a prostitute is like you're selling your soul, or you're doing something that you shouldn't. Like, that's how we look at the word prostitute. You prostitute yourself. So I think that when we change the word, right, like that's the same thing, maybe what you were going to say about Lilith and
I was
Eve.
saying exactly the same, yeah, that
Right.
neither
No,
neither was wrong. It's just been the two sides of what was shamed.
right. No, I'm not disagreeing with, I'm just saying the word. Sometimes the word prostitute can be confusing for people, like thinking of them being prostitutes. They weren't prostituting themselves. That was, very sacred act they were doing. But I think maybe that was the point you were going to make about Eve and Lilith, was this idea of, what people say. I think the word you used was that the snake was,
Lilith.
yeah, but it was forcing them, they were
Oh,
compelled to, whereas Eve wants to find her, other side, right? She is called to be whole, right? Not just be this pleasant woman to Adam and just, be his rib, right?
oh,
But to be
exactly.
herself.
Yeah, yeah. And talking on the same subject of the sacred sexuality, of course, the closest aspect to this full moon is that trine and sextile to Vesta in Virgo, and the Vestal Virgins were women who were whole unto themselves. They were not virgins in the modern sense of the word at all. They were actually kind of priestesses that kept the hearth burning, and their part of their work was this sacred sexuality, healing through the sacred sexuality too, and Vesta's there at 6 degrees. So we've got Venus and Lilith at 15, which is a 6. We've got Vesta at a 6. We've got all this wonderful energy, priestess, really what is priestess energy, coming together. Um,
Right. And Vesta, I mean, Athena, Pallas Athena, has also
oh yes,
15.
she's a
That's
15.
Saturn, she's at 15.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's that 6. So yeah, it's very interesting that there's so much energy towards this either movement with the 5 or the 6, which is the, the love energy.
Mm,
So we have that um, 5 and then the 7. Very interesting. There's a lot of lower numbers that we didn't have before.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I think too, what's interesting is that the nodes at 11 degrees, which is also a 2, so kind of matching up again with Mars in that sense of this is our fate, like mastering our fate or our destiny. Um, and, it's that saying by Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll rule your life and you'll call it fate.
Mm,
It's that thing of going, okay, I'm actually choosing the path forward. And that's kind of how it feels to me, like this energy is on purpose. It's
mm.
not just, oh, we're just going to hide away and we're going to keep pretending because it's comfortable. But we're going to do that work, right? We're going to root ourselves in who we are, who we're becoming. And noticing that Chiron is at 10 degrees, which matching the Uranus. So that again, that new beginnings, that energy of allowing the sacred, the healing to be fulfilling or complete.
And then we talk about my new favorite, Caraiclo. And so I think I mentioned at the beginning that Caraiclo's at four Aquarius, opposing Hygeia at 5 Aquarius. Sorry, at 5 Leo, and the two are really in square to this full moon. And Caraiclo is the grace spinner, and she is this. To my, the more I kind of look at her in people's charts and feel into her myself, because I've just had my Caraiclo return, which we all have at around age 61. She is when she's called the grace spinner, I think she spins stories. I see her as this kind of healing figure that heals through stories. And in Aquarius, she's pulling in this new vision. And incidentally, Caraiclo herself, the actual body, is approaching the opposition from when she was discovered back in 1997. We didn't know she existed before then as an object. She was the wife of Chiron, so she has this healing energy herself. She was said to be a handmaiden of Pallas Athena and things, but I don't think she was a handmaiden. I think she was a companion tutor, as Chiron was to the gods. I think Caraiclo was to the goddesses. I think they were extremely important figures who were mentors and teachers, and like women often teach kind of the more traditional female skills like the weaving, the spinning, and do it through telling the stories as they do those things. So this is how I see Caraiclo, and her opposition to Hygeia, with Hygeia in Leo ruling the heart, of course. It's kind of, she's bringing this healing in, that we are being given this amazing opportunity to really heal our hearts. We've been through some very challenging, crazy times, and there's a lot of division and separation in our world. But and I'm not saying you have to just start agreeing with everybody, but you can disagree with people and still love them. you know I kind of thought about a blog post I wanted to write the other day, because I've been going through some very personal awakenings myself over the last few weeks. And do you know what I was going to call the blog post? I was going to go, it's the day I realised that I love Donald Trump. Because I see him as this hurt little boy, and I know he's gone now, but he's still talking, and he's still doing things. And I really see him as this damaged human. Yes, he caused a lot of, trouble, and some people think he's great, but I see his hurt little boy, so I can love that hurt little boy and still disagree with him. So this is what this full moon to me is saying. It's plumbing these deep places and realizing that you can feel this deep connection and deep love for people, even if you don't disagree, even if you don't agree. So, yeah.
Right, absolutely. The balance, I think that's a very good point that, you know, you can find compassion for what creates the schism in someone, or for who they are, the human part of them that is damaged, or whatever we want to call it, is lacking because of their experience. It doesn't stop you from saying that, and that's the boundary issue. That's where the boundary comes in, right? That's the two, where Mars is, yes, you have a reason for the way you are, and I love you for it, but I'm not going to let you treat me this way, or I'm not going to just go along with you. And that's kind of been the confusion for many of us for many years, is this idea that I love you, so do what I want, and I can't say anything bad about you. And that's not true. It's not like you can be kind, right? You can be kind, but you don't need to just let somebody dump on you. And that's the difference. Like, what is your right, your freedom? Because then when you understand those things, you can certainly move forward.
Mm.
That's a great title. I think that would be a fun title.
And maybe as just an example, we can learn to treat people with more compassion rather than this real harsh punishment society that we live in. I'm not saying let them off or anything like that, but I think back to those stories of some tribal cultures that would sit somebody in the center of the village and shower them with love.
Right. You do that in South Africa, when they did the commission, right? It's an African, and probably other tribes as well.
No, I think it was an African tribe I read about, yeah, that did it. And is this punishment society working? Is it? I felt real. I've been quite upset this week, not because Prince Philip died, but because of what I've witnessed, because of some people's cruelty and lack of compassion of the things they've been sharing. And I was like, can't we be better than this? You didn't have to like him. You didn't have to, you could think he was horribly racist and all these things, but just say nothing. Do we have to be totally lack of compassion? And we can still think that royalty should have to go and still have compassion for a woman that lost her partner of 73 years. So, can't we find this balance? This is what's been going on in my life, and it feels like this full moon energy to me.
Right. Well, I think that has a lot to do with this, the 999. Nine is all about finding compassion, that we are one, finding the balance, or the realization of what's true for you, or what's true for me, or true for anyone. What is the truth? That just because we don't like what somebody says or does, doesn't mean we have to be cruel to them. Like, yes, we've been treated cruelly, many of us, by society, our parents. Everyone wanted us to adapt and transform, but the reason why they wanted us to do that was to keep us safe, even though it didn't keep us safe. It didn't work. Honestly, that punishing energy, you're wrong, I'm going to force you into shape, that whole, even in the military, what they do, trying to through cruelty, they shape you. They take away your feeling, like you become numb to feeling.
Yeah.
And that's not the solution, right? Just being a hard, cold robot is not the solution to what we're trying to achieve, or what we want to feel, and how we can express ourselves. So I think on one hand, people expressing themselves can feel uncomfortable because they're being what we might think of as cruel. But on the other hand, we have to find that discernment to know that they're in pain, right? So that's kind of that thing, right? They're in pain, so they're acting a certain way, which, yeah, but then we're not following them or agreeing with them. I think that's the key, is how we separate ourselves from the herd mentality. Like somebody's doing something, so I got to set it right. I've got to do something about it.
Oh, I've just ignored it, but it was still like it just brought this energy. I kind of read posts in terms of what's going on in the planets and the messages that I'm getting from them, and that's what came up for me. That clearly we're being asked, and we're away from this full moon right now. We're 2 weeks away from it as we record this. This full moon is full of a request for digging in deep to those feelings of compassion, to my mind. And it's a very healing full moon and purging a lot of that, the old patterns, the old way of doing things. Again, you talked about the nodes at 11 degrees. I mean, I'm typical of, a numerologist light. I always see that as just the gateway number to, a new beginning. And the North Node in Gemini at 11 degrees is a new way of community, a new way of being in community with each other. So,
Right. Right, and the 11 is definitely a number of new beginnings or double new beginnings. It's a portal. It is also an opportunity to stand on your own 2 feet. So uh, one of the things that I feel is really important about this full moon, including Cairo and Cariclo, is their focus on standing on our own 2 feet, is moving away from collapsing because someone has an opinion that might make us feel bad about ourselves. So moving away from that type of response that we have been conditioned to over many centuries. Like somebody thinks I'm a bad person, so I'm going to hide, or I'm going to be a bad person, or whatever. You know what I mean when I say that.
mm,
Not really a bad person, but we internalize. Somebody has a weird look on their face, or they yell at us, so we internalize it as if it's something we've done wrong, instead of this energy that we're being shown through. I see the kind of similar to what you were saying, Lou. I see Cariclo and whatever, how you pronounce the name, and Charon. They're the link between the physical world or the human world and the kind of heavenly world. They're the
mm,
communicators, and they're the ones who are translating the experience. So it speaks to that of, yes, let's move away from being wounded children and wounded adults to becoming, this is who I am. I'm okay with who you are. Doesn't mean you're going to treat me the way you want. But then again, that's our freedom. And what strikes me as interesting as well is that Neptune now is at 22 degrees,
mm,
with having had that energy with the nodes earlier, for quite a while, and now kind of reinstating that way forward through, kind of releasing ourselves from our bondage, from the illusion of bondage, and going like, that's enough. I've had enough of living somebody else's reality, and I want to live what's true for me.
I'm quite excited to see how this all develop after when Mercury first passes the North Node, then goes retrograde in Gemini, and goes over the nodes again, and then Venus passes the North Node, and then the Sun passes the North Node. It's real, all the personal planets are just following each other into this new ground. As we move into this new paradigm, and the personal planets are kind of how we behave and how we react and how we live. And I do feel a real opportunity here for everybody to kind of feel the shift that I personally have been feeling, because I've got so many aspects going to my planets, that we are really being invited to move to this more compassionate, loving place.
Right. I think this is a universal opportunity. Like, this is the gateway to something different. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we can stay where we've been. We can live in that world of of victimization and feeling less than that we've been conditioned to. And it's been very painful, but here's an opportunity to um, look at what is kind of creating that situation. And by understanding that somebody like, Donald, as you mentioned, he wasn't doing those things to us, even though it may have felt like it, and it did impact many people in painful ways. Uh, he's just doing him, right? He's playing Donald, whatever. And Donald, like anyone else, has the opportunity to go, you know what? I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the wounded child. I want to be the evolved adult. And what does that take? And that's our free will to go, yes, I see there's an opportunity. So this is kind of like as exploration, right? That's how it feels. Like, I know we talked about at the beginning when we did the overview for the year, this idea of being on an adventure and
Yeah.
exploring new territory. And this new territory you're talking about, once all of these planets pass the node, and it's like, okay, you're in open territory, you're in a new place. And kind of crossing the path, the open waters, like that idea of moving into a new age and going, I don't want to be who I was. What do I need to do? What can I explore? How can I live this differently?
And then, of course, Pluto stationing retrograde just hours after this full moon at, at 26 degrees of Capricorn. Incidentally, Venus stations retrograde at 26 degrees Capricorn at the end of this year. So that's a powerful degree. And Venus represents earthly desires in some ways, and Pluto represents soul desires. And there's Pluto in his journey of changing our institutions. And I do think they are starting to shift. I am feeling it. I am really starting to see that gradually our institutions that we've given our power to are starting to transform. And I think this will be a big part in that shift as well. So,
Right. And it's interesting to see that Saturn is at right now, say 12 degrees of Aquarius, which is that place where we get to decide what we're realizing. Like, are we going to realize our own wisdom? Or are we going to go back to the old ways? And then Jupiter is at 27, which is also a 9. So that the potential is so enormous right now to let go of the past, to let go of that tired old way of being, so we can show up because somebody expects us to be this way, or we can't have what we want. And, COVID, the whole pandemic thing has proved to us that all the things that people said we couldn't do, that weren't possible, are clearly possible when there's a need, right? When you have to do it, you find the way. And that's what's so exciting. And when you think about Pluto going into retrograde at this 26, right, that 8, at like on the same day, which is the 27th, it's enormously interesting with Venus, that idea of the two of them have been in legend together, right? The idea of them going underground, and the story was always Venus was, or whoever it was forced into it. And yet that bonding of the side of ourselves, of the soul and the earthly, is what we need to do. It's like, yeah, I want to bring that part of myself into my world so I can like live honestly, like, as opposed to pretending I don't have any deep desires, I don't have any like negative thoughts or dark ideas.
yeah.
Right.
And Ceres has been part of this journey too, and she's following up behind. I kind of see the Ceres Venus Pluto connection as the whole Demeter Persephone Pluto story, and we're really, all these patterns are coming to say, like you said, sexual desire is normal. Our society has said it's like something dirty, something to not be talked about and things. And I'm not, suggesting everybody has to go out and talk about their sex lives. That's nothing to do with that. But It's accepting that human part of you, that we are basically animals as well, with our physical desires and needs just as much as eating food. It's like, and it's acceptance of all of that. So I think, again, all that humanness is being brought to the fore so that we can accept it. I really think this is probably one of the most powerful periods for human, I'm going to say potential, but I don't even mean that word. Acceptance is more the word of accepting our humanity. Less talk of all this in the next life or ascension to something better. This is it, Earth, desires, eating, sex, all those things, money, love. It's all what we're here for. So anyway.
Yes, and that's part of that whole sacred sexuality, was actually to teach women and men how to have good sex.
Yeah.
So they were treating, like, having reverence for sex, having boundaries. These are all the things we need in everything, whether it's money or food or anything, relationships with any people, is being taught how to do it in a way that is respectful and honest. So we can, we can say what we want and the other person says what they want, and then we honor that. Like, we don't push through their boundaries and say, no, I'm going to do what I want on you, right? And it makes a big difference, right? It really does. That compassion and that love and that willingness to go, okay, I want this, so what do you want? And let's find the way forward. I think there's so many words and expressions that have been kind of bastardized, if I can use that word. The idea of even let's compromise. Like, I have an issue with that word, because compromise always makes it sound like I have to give up things that are important to me.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't have to do that. We should just go, okay, then I'm not going to do that, or I'm okay, you have a different opinion, but I'm still going to do what I need to do. We can't be giving up the things that are important to us, because then we're saying that someone else's desires is more important than our own.
I prefer the balance. We can be in a balance when we're around each other. That's like,
Right.
and respect each other's boundaries. Love and respect, it comes down to, really. So
Right. Or maybe we compromise on different things. Like, we compromise on the idea that we're going to always have our way, or that we're always going to come to an agreement. And we go, okay, let's compromise on that. Like, you have your turn to decide and then I'll decide, or whatever, instead of going, no, we're going to figure it out and someone's going to have to lose so that someone wins. Right.
it's a difficult dance, but I think the universe is giving us the opportunities to at least do that dance and try and find some kind of harmony in there. It's not going to be easy. I'm not suggesting it. When I look at these things, these are opportunities. That's why I always call the transits and the full moons and the new moons things opportunities. It's just whether we listen and whether we learn the lesson. For example, as we record this, we're in the Aries kind of energy, and Mars is the ruler of Aries, has broken that boundary of the time of the serpent, the draconic bowl. And the lesson has really been about self-love. I thought I was quite self-loving. I've been on a track of focusing on self-love and realized how less so. Yes, I was self-loving to a degree, but now I'm doing more of it and I feel better for doing more of it. And then we move into Taurus, which is more about recognizing how we can take that self-love out and attract others with it, because we're more attractive if we're self-loving. So, and then
Right. The earthly desires, this is the thing. It's not about the 7 deadly sins or whatever the kind of Bible and all of that religious stuff said. It really is about recognizing that we have desires, and that we need to know that our desires have value and that there's a way to do it in a respectful, kind way by loving ourselves and loving the situation. Yeah, I also think, like, when you're talking about like this whole idea of having Mars broken the bowl and then everything kind of moving forward, is we're entering a territory that is unknown. So when you enter unknown territory, if you go on a wilderness adventure, you're going to hit areas. It's going to be challenging. It's going to push your buttons. You're going to have to learn new skills. You're going to have to like walk until you find shade, and it's going to be like, oh my god, when am I going to get there? I'm walking for miles and miles, I'm exhausted, and you're going to keep walking. And that's kind of what happens when you're breaking new ground, when you're doing new things. You really have to apply yourself.
Yeah. And oh, I had a thought then, and then my phone buzzed. I've got this. Oh, I was, yeah, talking. You mentioned the seven deadly sins. I've been listening to loads of stuff about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, right? Which is an actual verified document. Apparently, the person Jesus said there is no such thing as sin. Did you know he said that? That's been
What?
that's been cut out of the Bible. He actually said there's no such thing as sin. So there you go.
Right, I believe it. The whole, if you go back to some of the Essenes,
Yeah.
their old culture and the kind of ancient culture that was passed down, that is still like, hidden in some of these things and coming to light, is this idea of being even the, what do they call those people? Well, in French, they have the word, the good man, le bon homme. It's, the ones that were keeping the sacred treasure. What do you call them? They were all descendants anyway of the Essenes, and the Essenes believe that, in the wholeness, that there is no such thing as sin. You do what you do, and then you take responsibility basically for what you do, right? And that's what it boils down to. So the idea of sin is like reducing people to children, and that's what's happened, right? Like, we've been reduced to these little children who don't have any rights, that feel hurt and harmed and angry. And just bringing Trump again, that's such a great example of somebody who had everything, all the power in the world, and could not figure out how to get past their own hurt to actually use their ability for good. Lots of potential there, and just staying in the wound, staying in the pain. But that was what we've been conditioned to, is that you're going to be a child, that you don't have any voice, not a child with delight and joy, but a child that's been crushed and controlled. And, you will listen to me, you will do it my way, all that type of stuff. So of course, that's a perfect way to keep people quiet, is to say, there's these sins, right? Or you're not going to go to heaven, you're going to go to hell. And
I feel very validated there. All my
right.
because I got dragged to church as a child, like for many many years, and all along I was going, babies can't sin. Why are they like washed away their sins? And I was all these things I would question all the time, being my very mutable, questionable self. And so now I'm thinking, well, the message was good all along, but the actual man went and bastardized it. There's that, yeah.
Yeah, they changed it so they would be in power, but that was the whole that was the age of Pisces. The
Oh yeah,
power of the age of Pisces was
yeah,
to, take away our power, so that we would realize that it just doesn't work. You just can't control people by, abusing their power and telling them that you'll be godlike, or you'll do this.
and telling them that babies are sinners, honestly.
Right,
Good
right. Right.
Anyway, we've gone over an hour already. Should we move to the symbols?
Let's do it.
All righty, you do yours first.
All right. So Scorpio at 8 degrees, a calm lake bathed in moonlight. The keynote is a quiet openness to higher inspiration. One could stress the romantic suggestions such an image evokes, but even at the level of a love relationship, what is implied is a surrender of two personal egos to the inspiration of transcendent feelings, which are essentially impersonal. Love expresses itself through the lovers, for real love is a cosmic, undifferentiated principle of power, which simply focuses itself within the souls of human beings who reflect its light. The same is true of the mystic's love for God. People strive hard to achieve great things through daring adventures, but a moment comes when all that really matters is to present a calm mind upon which a supernatural light may be reflected. Beyond all efforts, there is the need for peace and the readiness to accept the illumination from above. The key word is quiescence.
I love that symbol because I do always think of Scorpio as the deepest, calmest, stillest water. And so I might copy and paste this symbol into the description of the when I post the podcast. But the Chandra symbol for Scorpio 8 is a man with white hair. He has an angelic countenance, split down the middle between advanced and retrogressive dynamics, karmically a hybrid mixed from opposite sides that seldom go together, grafting onto an exceedingly inward nature, appointed and driving ambition to become somebody. Yet your inward nature contains within it a host of retrogressive pools of great power and intensity, and your newfound footing in the world of self-mastery is tense and pressurized by shadows of the past, threatening to engulf whatever territory you can begin to make your own. A titanic battle waged behind the scenes between wisdom and folly, both of them bearing immense lessons to move through. The folly is a crucial ingredient to ensure that the attainment of wisdom will also feature compassion and bone-deep endurance. A journey for the long haul, contested at every split second, requiring first as much courage, strength, and inner will as you find in there for this purpose. Everything being right where it needs to be for the impossible to occur, and all of the chains to be cut loose. There we go. Summing up a lot of what we've talked about.
Indeed. It's amazing how that happens every time.
Every single time. And we actually don't really read these symbols before we start. So well, personally, I would like to thank you all for your support of the podcast over the last 2 years we've been doing it. Have we been doing it 2 years now?
Or 3, I can't remember.
3, I think. Yes, 3. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. And we did start it when we were having fun, but like I said, Jen and I, we've both got so much going on and so much going on in our own work and our own lives that it just feels like the perfect time on a Scorpio full moon, conjunct Uranus, to say, let's let it go, let it flood away. So you can find me at louiseeddington.com, Cosmic Owl Astrology, on Facebook, on Instagram. Google my name, you'll know where to find me. My 2 books, Complete Guide to Astrology and Modern Astrology, are for sale on Amazon, and I'm pleased to say Complete Guide is number 1 in all astrology books. So it's goodbye from Lou. Now, Jen, tell everybody where they can find you.
So I want to echo Lou in the sense this has been such an amazing adventure, been so wonderful. So thank you for being listeners, for being here. It's really been amazing. And so it's kind of sad. I feel I have some tears. Saying goodbye, that's good. It's always good to end before you hit the bitter end. Not that I think we would have hit the bitter end, but just because reasons being what they are, it's time to move on. And of course, you can always find me. I am Jen Duchenne. You can find me on the internet, Instagram, Facebook, on my website, jenduchenne.com. I am on YouTube as well, and the Akashic Swan Guidance. And yes, I have the illuminating journey cards for sale, classes coming. I teach the Akashic Records, the how to use the light grid, the Akashic Light Grid. And I also have a book that I wrote in 2011, if you wanted to read it, the Chic Cocoon. It's out there on Amazon. And yes, wishing you joy and hope we connect again in the future.
It is sad. I feel sad too, but I agree with Jen. It's better to go before, when it feels right. And we can always, who knows, we may come back to it. But at the moment, we're not, neither of us are in the right place to continue. So for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
Goodbye from Jen.